why you're here or where this is. This is a first ever live audience recording of the Rebrand podcast. If you don't know what the Rebrand podcast is, Tim is about to tell you what it is.
That's what he always does to me. If you've listened to the podcast at all, you know this is pretty much what it is. We sit as far away as we possibly can. That way, when we start throwing fisticuffs, you don't get to see that. But welcome. Yeah, I said fisticuffs for a young people podcast.
We like to lean into the generational gap.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, welcome to Rebrand.
Yeah.
We're really, really excited that you are here. We're really excited to be able to do this semi-live. I kept saying it live, but he kept correcting me. It's live audience. But if the word live is in there, I'm going to just live into that. So
it'll make it up onto the YouTube eventually.
Yeah, and for those people, it'll be live to them. But we are excited that you're here. This season, we've been doing what we called Re-UMC, where we were taking a look at the United Methodist Church. And really, from my standpoint, it was all about living into what Bishop Wallace Paget has started talking about with passionate spiritual disciples and leaders and groups and congregations. Discipleship has always been my heart. And where I'm at on discipleship is I think we as clergy kind of took a step back from what discipleship should really be. We're really good at talking about discipleship, but not always, at least for me, not always great about living into it. And so what we want to do within the Holston Conference is really shift that back to living like Jesus, helping other people to live like Jesus. And so we started talking about that throughout season 2 of the podcast, and we talked about what it meant to move from complacency to urgency. What were some of the other
From survive
keywords
to
there?
thrive, from tokenism to inclusion, and those were the big 4.
Those were the big,
Yeah.
yeah. And then, of course, we had General Conference, but we talked about what could we do from a live standpoint, and we had several different ideas. And one of the topics that we realized that we did not talk about, that we see a major gap within the United Methodist Church, is our younger generation. And we see that depleting more and more and more. And I mean, look around at who's in the room. We geared this for young people, and we may have every young person that is attending annual conference right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we really want to kind of look at what it is that we're doing, what it is that we can be doing, and we want to hear from some of our young folk, and we're going to do that in just a minute. But before we do that, we're going to allow you to grab sandwiches, and then Ben has an exercise for you to participate as well.
As you go and get your sandwich, if you would find someone who you think is the farthest from your age as possible. And if you think you're somewhere in the middle, then go either direction. Don't ambush all the young people in the room. So if the young people are taken up or they clearly don't want to talk to anyone, which is totally fair, then pair up with somebody else. But I made it a mission for a lot of what I do in my work is interview people and film with people for the conference. And at the start of the year, I told myself I would ask them, whether for a project or for my own understanding, I would ask everyone that I film with, what gives you hope for the United Methodist Church? And so I'm 6 months into the year, I'm halfway through, and I've asked a lot of people what gives them hope for the UMC. I have a list. I've asked like 10 bishops at this point, and all these, like at General Conference, I got to ask a bunch of really cool people, and I heard some really cool things. Everyone has hope. Everyone who's here in this room, I believe, has hope for the UMC and has hope for the Holston Conference. I think if we talk more about that, we can inspire each other to action and stretch each other in different ways. So as you go and get your lunch, come back, and we're going to spend maybe 5 to 10 minutes talk with someone about what gives you hope for the United Methodist Church. Go with God. All right, so we have 4 fantastic panelists with us today. I'm going to let them briefly introduce themselves. But what we'll do is I will ask you if you would share your name, what you're doing in a ministry perspective, whether that's as in full-time ministry, if you are working towards full-time ministry, if you are a lay leader in your church doing ministry. Share what your ministry context looks like, and we'll go from there. We'll start with Josh.
Sure. So I'm Josh Bass. I have the joy of serving at State Street United Methodist in Bristol, Virginia. And I do children and youth ministry on top of some other things.
Fantastic. All right, Sam.
That's my name, and my home charge is Seymour, and I'd tell you what district it's in, but we keep changing the names, and
Sure.
I'm sorry,
Sure.
I just keep having to forget. So Smoky Mountain right now. Anyway, I'm not full time in ministry, as it were, but I'm on the delegation, and I also, as an extension of Holston, serve on the board of the board of directors for the General Board of Church and Society.
All right, Reagan.
Hello, I'm Reagan. I'm from Johnson City. I just graduated from Tennessee Wesleyan in Athens. I will be starting at Duke Divinity in the fall. And I've worked in camping ministries, children and youth ministries. I was able to serve on the delegation to General Conference this past year. So
Perfect. And last but not least, Jesse.
I'm Jessie Bettram. I'm in Knoxville. I go to Fountain City United Methodist Church. I'm laity. I serve in different ministries at our church. Wherever they need somebody to show up, I will be there to help. And I am a retired young person. I don't know why I'm here, but I work with a lot of younger people. I am raising young people, so that's why I'm here.
Ben, Ben likes to make fun of my age. And
He's the oldest one on the stage.
As a 27-year-old, I really take offense to him making fun of that. But he did tell me that I wasn't going to be like the oldest. Well, I am the oldest, but he told me that we were going to have someone that wasn't a youth category. And then he invited Jessie, who looks like she's 16, up here. And so I'm still the old man for sure. So what about you all? One of the things that you heard here, and we've got some questions, and I know Ben sent some to you, but I'm going to throw a curveball based on what they said. One of the things I think the audience would like to learn about is things that we can be looking at as part of our church, things that we can be doing that would be helpful for young people to get involved. What do you have to say to the audience? Let's start out with that easy softball that I just threw you. Solve the Methodist, the world's problem.
I have some ideas, I guess. Okay, so first, let me tell you why you shouldn't listen to me, and then I'll tell you what I want to tell you. So I think it's important to note that not one of us can speak for like all young people. So I just want to throw that out there at the beginning. And to the extent that one of us, especially myself, might be an outlier for some reason, like discount appropriately. Okay, that's done. Check. The things we can do, I have 2 structural ideas, and I'll be quiet for a while. One, if you want to retain young people in your churches, one way to do that is to not have lots of turnover at the youth pastor role. And one way to do that is to provide that person with health care, because that's important to be able to live and work in your job. I understand that not all churches in the conference can do that on their own, but that's why we're a conference, right? We can partner with other churches. There can be conference initiatives to work on that. Go solve that problem, please. Number 2, the other thing I'd like to bring up is the paucity, the lack of young people on several really important committees in the conference. And so there aren't a lot of young people, if any, on places like the invitation team, the strategy team, other important committees that deal with the conference finances and personnel. I could go on, trustees, right? And what that not only means is that our voice isn't there, but it also serves as a signal. It's a signal to young people that our voice doesn't matter, that you aren't interested in what we have to say. And perhaps the folks who bothered to show up to this today or who are listening later aren't exactly the ones who need to hear that that is not good, but you're the people who are here, so you're who I get to tell that to. So yeah, in sum, if you want to care about young people, let's put both our money and our nominations where I think our hearts are actually already at.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a good word. And I look at, we've heard the phrase, invest in young people. They're the church of tomorrow, right? Right. But they're the church of today, right? I hope that we can be on the same page in this room about that. And that's easy to say, but hard to carry out, hard to do. Tim and I got to do an interview with Bishop Swanson while we were at General Conference. And you'll actually hear some of that tomorrow night, some portions of that interview. But he said something like, if we're serious about being a big tent denomination, if we're serious about bringing in people who we may not agree with, that means I have to make space for them. That means I might have to get out of the way. He shows such compassion and such a willingness to reach out to people who he does not agree with oftentimes and make space for them. I was really impressed with that word and his willingness to put that into practice. You mentioned, Sam, that we don't have a lot of young people on some of those larger committees, those more influential committees, one of those being the leadership committee. Our good friend Josh Bass actually sits on the leadership committee. I wonder if you would talk, Josh, about your experience maybe being asked to be on the leadership, on the strategy team, and what that experience has been like for you.
Sure. So we have, at State Street, we have a recovery ministry that meets on Thursday nights. And that's something else that I take a part in. So I was actually upstairs doing something on a Thursday night, and I got a phone call from a North Alabama area code. And normally I do not answer phone calls that I don't know the area code to. So I answered the phone and I said hello, and the voice said, "Hello, Josh, this is Bishop Deborah Wallace Paget." And my first initial thought was, oh, wow, you have the wrong number. And then she said that I was recommended by some people to sit in on the conference strategy team. And of course, my heart dropped. And then I got to the meeting and I was sitting there listening. And there were some good people sitting next to me, one being my district superintendent. And she said, you know what? This is Josh's first meeting, and I want to hear what he says. And ever since that meeting, Tim will tell you every time I think I have opened my voice to say what I think needs to happen. Now, I will tell you sometimes I do say, I'm sorry, this may not be the right thing to say at the moment, but they do listen, and it does give hope to know that I can sit on a team. As I was telling Kim, that is with so many pastors and conference leaders that have been doing this for so many years, and a new person into the ministry can go and say things that may not make sense to them, but may make sense to the young people of Holston.
Yeah. Thank you for your willingness to be that person on the committee. We talk about, we did an episode on tokenism to inclusion, and one of those being one of the areas where we tokenize people often is in age. And so we will often tokenize people based off of race, based off of ethnicity, primary language, gender, sexuality, but certainly age as well. And it can be lonely when you're the only person like you in the room. So thank you for your willingness to do that. I want to move to one of our scripted questions now so that we can, get through this. This one, I might listen to Reagan first, if you're willing to speak on this one. Knowing that there are many young people who do not value a personal connection with the church, what about church do you value enough that you're willing to invest your time and energy?
It's a loaded question. So, a little background. I'm a cradle Methodist, born, raised, still am. And I have been involved on a conference level for about 7-8 years now. And something I've always admired is the connectionalism of the United Methodist Church. It's interesting to talk to my friends that go to Baptist or non-denominational churches, and they are not connected with the churches around them. And I think it's amazing to be able to be apart for a year and come back to Lake Junaluska, and it's like a big family reunion. I mean, you hear that all the time, but you see people and say, oh my gosh, I haven't seen them in a year. And I think that connectionalism, not just within the conference, but within our local churches, within our districts, has just been amazing. And I got to see a little bit of even a national connectionalism at General Conference this past April. I would say, oh, I'm from Holston. They would be like, that's the delegation with Randy Fry, the man who always wears UT orange.
Yeah.
So
Go Vols.
it's just stuff like that. And I think that sense of community is so important, and we shouldn't just keep it to ourselves, because not everybody has that community. And if we have enough, why aren't we sharing it?
Talk a little bit more before you turn that off. From a general conference delegate, you were one of the youngest that were there. How did you feel that you fit in, or maybe didn't fit in, or what was it like in the legislative committees leading up to the plenaries and things?
Very different than what I would have ever expected. So this has been the never-ending delegation we have joked. And being in that room with so many people that have such a long history with the United Methodist Church, such a different history with the United Methodist Church, we got to hear, I cannot remember his name, but the first Native American to preside over a general conference, and he brought some of their rituals to the worship setting, and it was just stunning, because it's not like Holston, and that's a good thing. We need to broaden. What am I trying to broaden our horizons. There we go. Sorry, but I can give an example. So last minute, I was put on the financial administration committee, and if you voluntarily choose that committee, I commend you. Because if you like talking about pensions and retirement and money, that's your place. That's not my place. And so I was almost discouraged going into that, knowing nothing about finances. And the first person that I talked to in that room was also a 22-year-old. She was in the same exact position I was. She took somebody's spot on the delegation, was put in this. And it was just inspiring, because people actually listened to us. Everybody says, oh, we love to hear the young voices. We want them in the room. But we don't want them to talk. We want them to listen to us. And there were times when people would jokingly call on us and be like, oh, the girl over 2 seats beside of me wants to get up to the microphone and speak. And so you kind of had to, like Ben was trying to make me sing the national anthem up here.
Oh, she did. You did say you wanted to.
I
Carry
did
on.
not.
Carry on.
But so it was very important because not only did Kyla and I, was her name, feel the importance of representing our own conferences, we were in the room making decisions about pension plans that are going to benefit people like me who are going through the candidacy process in 50 years. And that was something both her and I spoke up and said, well, what about us? This might benefit you in 5 years. I'm working for another 50 years. So I'm sure it might not be like that in everywhere, but people, at least in financial administration, knew that the young voices were being spoken for. And that gave me hope that people listened to us and took us seriously, because they could have just sat us in the back, discarded us, because we weren't supposed to be in there. But we were supposed to be in there. So.
Yeah. All right. I want to ask a question now of Jesse. So a new friend of mine who Jesse's not a new friend. I've known Jesse for a while. I grew up at Fountain City United Methodist Church in North Knoxville, where Jesse is a member. And so I've known Jesse for a long time. And I've seen her do a lot of really good, fruitful ministry and go out of her way to make space for young people in the ministries that she's been a part of. So thank you for being here. I was having coffee with a friend of mine recently who has just retired and is taking on now a role with one of our conference committees that's doing a lot of kind of culture-changing work, steering work for our conference, and she was hesitant about taking that step. She's just retiring. She wanted to travel. She wants to relax. She wants to see her family. But she told me she took the gig because her son has decided the church doesn't matter to him. And her mission is to build a church that will matter for her son. So the question is, how do we do that, right? And that's not your question.
Well, it's too bad because I have answers.
But I think that is difficult. I think there is a willingness by a lot of I'm going to use the term older adult. That sounds awful, but like not young adult, of normal aged adults. There's a willingness to reach out and to make space for young people. But it's still difficult. That's not a solution. And so how do you go? What kind of questions do you ask, or what do you think the process? What might a first step look like if you're trying to reach out to young people in your church?
Oh my gosh, that's not on the script.
Or maybe when the spaces that you have built, that I've seen you build at Fountain City, that have attracted young people, what are some of the strategies that you maybe have leaned on?
Well, working with younger people, both in my day job and in the church, some things that I've noticed and I think it's coming from a place where I still consider myself young, and so I've moved out of that, where I remember enough what it was like to be a young person, I guess, and how it sometimes felt like, I would want to speak up or amplify my voice. And so I think being just a little bit removed from that has kind of steered my, I guess, intention. And with the younger people that I work with in ministry and in my day job, I found that they really look for two things. They look for their people and they look for their purpose. And they can, I'm in insurance, which is like not exciting at all, but I've got young people in insurance and they stay with our company because of the things that we do outside of insurance, right? I mean, it's like that's their community. They're finding a purpose. We do like volunteer hours and stuff like that, where it's not just about a thing to do. And so I think just acknowledging, I think that can look like anything for younger people, and kind of seeking them out and asking them, what their purpose and what their people look like, and just kind of making room for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Josh.
One thing that Jesse said that I have done in my ministry at State Street is preaching the word intentional. That's a word that we as people can do. And I think that's a word that the church can do, is be intentional in reaching out to those people. We have a ministry on Tuesday nights that is called Fish Club for our children and youth. And at the beginning of the year, I told them that there were 2 words that I'm going to be intentional about praying for this year. And those words were discipleship and hospitality. And intentionally praying for that has made a difference. Those are 2 words that we have done in children and youth ministry that has made such a difference. Not only in the consistency of the people showing up, but also the numbers that are coming. Most of them are like, the food's great, we get to go and hang out. But they know that we love them through it all. So hospitality and discipleship.
Hospitality and discipleship. All right.
Let me jump in here real quick.
Yeah.
One of the things that continues to stand out to me is what Ben said earlier when we interviewed Bishop Swanson, and Bishop Swanson having that heart to say that he would have to step away. And I think everyone in this room probably understands that if we continue doing church the way that we've always done church, the results are pretty much going to be the same, right? And what we see as the results this day and time is a decline. The easy answer for us to give up here is, well, you just got to make sacrifice. You just got to make sacrifice. And if you want young people to be there, then you've got to do what young people want to do. And I really think that is just oversimplifying a problem that is not going to be solved in that manner. You're not going to get an entire church to change. It just doesn't happen. We have a culture and we have a DNA that's a part of us that we tend to gravitate toward and move toward just about forever. But what you can start to do is make small changes in the culture and DNA. And so what that means is it's you have an opportunity, those of us sitting in this room have an opportunity to step back and to make sacrifices. And it's hard. And it stinks sometimes because it means that we're not doing exactly what we want to do. When I was growing up, my first call into ministry was youth ministry. And I learned very quickly that, man, nobody's going to listen to a 22-year-old youth pastor, except a 13-year-old that probably had a crush on me, and that wasn't good either. But as I got older and stayed in youth ministry, one of the commitments I made was that no matter where I went in ministry, I would always focus on young people. And I'm calling him out here a little bit. Ben is much younger than me. And Ben does things a lot differently than what I do or what I would like to do. But it works because we have conversation about it. It works because I'm not disappointed when he does something differently than the way that I would do it. And what has happened there is when I do ask Ben to do something differently, he's all about it. And it's because we've gained a mutual respect for one another. It's not the old man telling me what to do, but it's my partner. It's my colleague. It's someone that we're on equal standing, equal footing. And I think that is what has made communications as successful as it's been. Because I have the title director, I get a lot of people coming to me saying, "Oh my gosh, communications has made leaps and bounds," and I appreciate that, and I love hearing that because, man, I like to feel good, and I like to be liked too. But communications has gotten good and better, and we plan on getting even more better because we're a team, and we work together, and we bounce things off of one another. And if we could start to model that within our churches and not look for our young people to come in and as soon as we get a young person in the door, we want them to teach our Sunday school class or be our children's minister because it's a young person, they've got to love children. No, not necessarily. Josh does, I'm glad. But we can't pigeonhole people in. And to listen and to be intentional to find out the ministry that God has called young people into, and then to walk alongside. I think that is our role as we retire from youth.
Yeah, and kind of going back to what you said about it, I mean, it's not the tokenism of having like, oh, okay, we're going to have a Sunday school class. If you're in the age of 22 to 32, you may come. Not the tokenism of it at all, but just really staying tender to hear what they have to say and what they have to offer, I think it really is lovely. I love young people.
Yeah, and I think on the topic of tokenism, we did an interview with Rodrigo Cruz, who is in the North Georgia Conference, and he said, if I can be tokenized, so that he was speaking as a Mexican American. If I can be tokenized as a Mexican American so that my kids aren't tokenized to the same degree that I am, I'll take that every time. But that's a choice that he made for himself, right? And so I think he also talked about how we are in a season of tokenism, racially speaking, where in our pursuit of inclusion right now, that often looks like tokenism because we don't have enough people of color in our churches. And so if they have any involvement at all, they may be the only person in the room. And so I think... Sorry. So that's tough, and it's, you have to ask yourself, am I doing harm? But also you have to see that there are plenty of people out there who have a willingness to make a personal sacrifice for a season, so that the church that they believe in, the church that they are a part of, can grow into a better future. And so I would say, as a young person, I am willing to step into those places where I am a little bit out of place, and to give some perspective, to push some buttons a little bit. I think by being on stage, you all may, to some degree, have a willingness to give some perspective that is not otherwise shown in the room. So thank you all for doing that. I think one of the things that has to happen if you try to reach out to young people, if you're looking for more involvement or more representation from young people, is have a personal relationship with them first before you ask them to do something, right? And it's the same way. I talked with a friend of mine, Derek Scott, who's in the Florida conference, and he talked a lot about this, where to do the kind of culture-changing work and bringing people in, giving people a voice, if you bring them into a room and you don't have a relationship with them, you may be doing harm because you're leaving them alone. They don't have any support. And you need to do some personal change in yourself so that you are a resource for them, so you're a safe place for them if you're going to bring them in. And so I would say, like, make some cross-generational relationships in your church, in your own life, before you try to start building something new in your church.
All right. We have gotten here for an hour. Jim Goddard is waving back there, and I'm going to let Jim Goddard speak because he registered twice and paid twice. And so I think that deserves something extra.
Cut me out.
Nope.
Okay. Will be the incoming chair of congregational development, working with Susan Arnold, Dr. Susan Arnold. She's back here in the back. And what this is about developing new places for new people, winning people for Jesus Christ that are maybe not like you and me, okay? Now, my email address is jimgoddard1954. God knows I need your help, okay? All right? But I believe that we can make a difference. I really, really do believe we can make a difference. What I'd like to challenge you to do is to talk to me, talk to Susan. We have opportunities for you to serve in multiple different places that are going to be coming up over the year. I hear what you're saying. I appreciate you all and what you all are doing. We want to give you more opportunities for that, either on the conference level, or we're going to have a multiple different kind of district things that will be coming down the pike. But if we don't know if you're willing to help, we're not going to ask. So I'm asking, Susan's asking, we need your help.
All right. Well, we are at our time limit, so we want to let you all get out of here. Before we leave, I am going to ask Tim if he would give us a little prayer on our way out as we go about building relationship cross-generationally and creating space for young people in our church.
Absolutely. Thank you. Let's pray. God, we thank you for this day, and we thank you that we could gather at annual conference to have a little bit of fun, but to also talk about ministry in new ways, and to talk about a need within our denomination, a need within our church, and a passion, I believe, for many of the people that are in this room. And we just pray that you would help to guide and direct us in everything that we're doing as we think of new ministries to be a part of. If we think of old ministries, traditional ministries that we've been a part of, help us to see new ways to be ensured that we are including all voices, that we can be sure to have everyone at the table so we know what our communities are all about and how we can best reach them for you. God, we pray that you will continue to lead us in everything that we do, that you will strengthen our walk with you, and that you will help us to become the disciples that make other disciples. And we pray these things in your name. Amen. One of my favorite parts about the closing the Rebrand podcast, Ben loves to do this. He loves to throw it to me at the very end. I think he's wrapping up the podcast, and he just says, "Until next time," and then he looks over at me like, what am I supposed to say? So Ben, until next time.
Follow us on Instagram No, until next time, ask somebody what their hope is and start building new relationships. That's my takeaway. So,
Bye.
see ya. All right, we're going to bring it back together. I want to hear from some of you all. Tim is going to walk around. I've sent my assistant to walk around with his microphone and get some responses from you all. I would like to hear what hope someone else shared with you. So what have you heard from someone else here that gives them hope for the United Methodist Church?
One thing I heard from somebody else that I was talking to is that we have ordained a lot of new clergy and commissioned a lot, and that's really exciting. It's a great point of hope, I think, for us as we've just come out of General Conference and what we're looking toward in the future. So it's an exciting thing. So that's one thing I heard.
Absolutely.
One thing that gives me hope is that of the provisional elders, a good number of them were young adults. So
Yeah.
I was very excited about that.
Absolutely.
I'm excited that this guy could have been anywhere else in the world and is at annual conference right now. And we need to listen to him and his age group. That's what gives me hope.
Well, what I heard is young people, and I agree completely. And I was told, because we focus on mission, we don't want drama, we want to get things done.
What gives me hope is that I think back to the tradition of John Wesley, and the church at the time was in a big slump, and there was a massive revival that came out from him doing things differently, like going out to the pubs and making songs that people knew the tune, and you put different words to them and they learned theology. And we need to learn to reach people just like he did, change what we're doing, and go where the people are.
One of the things that gives me hope that came out of General Conference was what Will Cantrell has deemed decrements. And that is where the rules were changed to where deacons can now serve the sacraments and officiate sacraments. And why I say that gives me hope is one of the things that I've run into is when we talk about recruiting young people into the ministry, one of the issues that some of our young people had was I don't really want to go the ordained elder route because there's just so much stuff that comes with being an ordained elder. Our young people, they want to be involved in mission. They want to go and to do, and sometimes as ordained elders, we know that about the last thing we get to do is the thing that we were most passionate about that called us into ministry to begin with. And so I think as we begin to see the deacon route open up, it gives us an opportunity to recruit more young people into that area of service to where they can specialize in ministry and still have full rights to do what they should have been doing all along. That's my opinion, though.
What gives me hope is that we're finally realizing that we have young people that we need to listen to, and we really need to give them voices in our churches. And I'm excited to hear what new ideas we can have with them, do with them. And I'm involved in the UWF, and we need them there too, very, very much. And regenerate, whatever that word is, energize
There you go.
the UWF and our churches too with young people.
Absolutely.
Hey, Ben. Yeah, I was listening to Tiffany, a young lady who is a counselor. Had opportunity during General Conference on a website, was it?
Yeah.
To be available for counseling for our LGBTQ siblings, people who are in pain, people who are in suffering, and that kind of outreach is intriguing. It's refreshing, and that gives me hope for the UMC. That kind of devotion from our young, beautiful young souls in our congregations.